Two dice, a pencil, and an eraser are all you need to embark on a fighting fantasy adventure. Well, I've got my two dice. I've got my pencil. I've even got an eraser. The only thing I don't have, one of the original fighting fantasy books. And I'm not sure where they've gone. As mentioned previously, I love a good op shop for all the possible treasures in there and the bargains. Most recently, I picked up this very comfortable jacket for an Australian autumn for $12 on the way home from Melbourne. Then, of course, was the $10 bargain that I picked up recently, the wind trainer, the bicycle trainer that I've bolted onto my mountain bike, turning a mountain bike into a stationary bike. I use this practically every day, and now my 12-year-old son is using it too. Not for fitness, just to burn off some energy. So we're both benefiting from this $10 bargain. On top of that, the recent flask that I found for my home brew setup. That was also discovered in an op shop. And while there's plenty of odd bargains like this in just about every op shop you can find, one thing I haven't found, and this is going back the last few years especially, are any of the original 80s or 90s fighting fantasy game books. They have all just gone. Where did they go? We're harking back to the year 1982 here, the release of the quintessential fighting fantasy classic game book, The Warlock of Firetop Mountain, where it all began. And for me, I was very lucky to have a school library and also a local library that had quite a few of these books on selection, which was just awesome for a kid growing up in the 80s. And I actually got to the fighting fantasy series of books thanks to its predecessor, Choose Your Own Adventure. Yes, where you didn't have to worry about the dice, you didn't have to worry about the pencil, you just had to make the decision and hopefully you survived at the end of it. Sensational series of books, but one little problem for me, well actually two, not enough orcs to slay and not enough luck to be tested. And thankfully I moved on to the wonderful world of fighting fantasy. Now over time I borrowed many fighting fantasy books from both libraries. Although, truth be told, I can't actually remember the very first experience I had with these books. I'd like to say it was the very first one, Warlock and Firetop Mountain, but I'm not exactly sure. It could be that. It could be Forest of Doom, possibly Death Trap Dungeon, or maybe even Robot Commander. I mean, seriously, look at this amazing cover and tell me how a 7-year-old boy would not like to find out more about giant robots wrestling dinosaurs. It is the business. Now, recently, I went through Mum's photo albums, and look what I found. From the 1st of March, 1995, which means I would have been 14 at the time. There I am. I believe that's on holiday. With hair, yes. It did exist back in the day. But more importantly, the book there, anyone who's read one or more of these will instantly recognize the two heads on the back, being Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson, the creators of Fighting Fantasy. So there I was as a 14-year-old, on holiday taking a few game books with me, and that certainly improved dull holidays to no end, I can tell you. So yes, those green spine books, the originals from the 80s and the 90s, certainly have a special place in my heart. And now I'm a little bit older and potentially wiser at the age of 44 and a dad. Well, my goal at the moment is to find one, relive those memories, and see if I can get my kids onto this as much as I enjoyed it. Now, the thing is, I kind of know how this is going to go if I do find one easily. And I'll pass it on to my son Jackson. He'll nod, he'll flick through the book, he'll smile at me, yeah, great dad. Then he'll put it down and he'll go back to Roblox or maybe playing Minecraft with his mates because, you know, so much easier than breaking out two dice, a pencil and an eraser. Oh, I've got to work to read this book? No thanks, I'll go back to my video games. That's okay because it's memories for me. But I'll try it anyway because I like to, you know, educate my kids on the things that dad grew up with. So we'll see how that goes. The only problem with this is that trying to find one of these books in the wild has certainly been a bit of a challenge so far. And yes, I did say in the wild because I know that these books, most of them have been re-released. They've got new covers. They've been brought out by the Wizards Group. Wizards of the Coast, not sure. But they've certainly been reproduced by a couple of publishers. The artwork at the front has changed. The general design has changed. I understand too, not that I've got my hands on a copy of one of these yet, but certainly you can flick through the pages now and the dice are on the page. So you don't even need the dice anymore because you can just go randomly pick a spot on the book and there we go. There's my dice roll. Did I slay the orc? Did I save the princess? Did I rule the day? then I say no. But that's a new feature. That's in the latest edition. No, I'm talking the nostalgia of the original ones. Like I said, the green spine ones that I grew up with and had some in my collection and love to read in the library. They're the ones I kind of want to get my hands on for memory's sake, because it's nice that they re-released them. It's nice that you can get them out there. Plus, there's also the video games. Like if you're a Fighting Fantasy fan and you haven't checked this out on Steam, there is the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Additionally, there's also the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Yes, obviously it's a very, very beautiful and popular game. Although, this second one I actually have as part of my Steam experience, and I do enjoy playing it. The combat's a little bit strange, but certainly it's brought back memories. Not the same as flicking through one of these classic 80s or 90s books. Now, I know I could find them on eBay. I know that I could find them on Gumtree, possibly even Facebook Marketplace. The problem with that is they're priced accordingly. And in some cases, some people want absolute drug money for this. I love my memories. I love my classic nostalgia, my RPG game books, if you will, but I'm certainly not paying through the nose for something like this. What I'm trying to do at the moment, and this is the challenge, is find them in op shops or markets or garage sales or any of those kinds of places. I even had a look at the tip shop the other day just to see if any would turn up. I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I haven't come across, well, any in a number of years. And I might be partly to blame for this, because years ago, when they were still kind of readily available, I would go to op shops and I would pick one up in good condition, barely read. I'd read it, I'd maybe play it, and then I'd sell it onwards and make a little bit of profit. Buy for 2, sell for 5. It certainly didn't bring me fame and fortune. It certainly didn't pay for a house or a brand new car, but that's what I did, thinking, oh, I could just keep doing this for as long as they're out there. And we get to now, 2024, and the supply has well and truly dried up. So yes, I'm partly to blame for this. I don't think I'm the only one, but obviously a lot of people have hoarded them for their collection. But they've got to be out there somewhere. That's what I figured. And I know it's not an age thing either, because yes, I know Warlock of Firetop Mountain, very first fighting fantasy book, 1982 would make it 42 years old now. It's a book coming up to 50 years. But go to any op shop, any secondhand bookstore, any garage sales, you're going to find books so far older than that. So it's not an age thing. Maybe they're just less prolific than what I thought they would be. Maybe I've been going to the right stores at the right time and dried out their supply. Whatever it is, that's the goal. I'm trying to find at least one to reminisce and possibly pass on to the kids. But speaking of reminiscing, let's go back and have a look at the ones I had once upon a time. Now, like I said, I had a few of these fighting fantasy books in my collection. Not all of them, obviously, but a few. And I foolishly let them go. But not before they were well read. They certainly got to work out each and every one of these books. And before I get into the list of what I had, if you've got a favourite fighting fantasy book that you absolutely cherished, maybe you've still got it on your shelf, I'd love you to let me know in a comment below. I'd also love, while you're doing that, while you're sharing your thoughts on your favourite fighting fantasy novel, if you'd like and subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, on with the list. This is what I had fighting fantasy-wise. Number 3, The Forest of Doom. I can't recall what actually happened in the forest, but I'd like to look back to see if it was doom-filled, as suggested. Number 6, Death Trap Dungeon. I was so happy to make a barbarian friend in the dungeon. Who wouldn't be? Until he went crazy and I suddenly had to fight him. Boo! Number 11, House of Hell. What a fighting fantasy book this was too. Straight out of a horror movie. Your car breaks down, you end up staying at a nearby mansion, and end up having to fight for your very life from the lunacy inside. I just remember how horrifying the part was where you spend the rest of your life in a cramped cage. One of my faves because it was set in modern times. Well, modern times back then, obviously. Number 22, Robot Commando. Walk around in battle mechs and fight dinosaurs. If that's not a recipe for a good time with a fighting fantasy book, then I don't know what is. Number 24, Creature of Havoc. Look, I'll be honest here. Even though this one is a lot of readers' favourites, this one I did not enjoy at all. Because a lot of what happened was by chance. You're a monster, trying to figure out how you became a monster, waking up in a dungeon and feasting on anything that unfortunately crosses your path. Eventually the strange things you hear becomes language you understand, and there were hidden things to try and find, but I don't think I got to the proper end of this thing ever, giving up and playing something else. No, don't eat the halfling. What are we doing now? Oh, we're eating the halfling. Well, okay. Number 25, Beneath Nightmare Castle. Now, was this the one with the orb and the amulet of light? I vaguely recall. It's worth a revisit at least. Number 30, Chasms of Malice. You're underground with a shining sword and a cat, and there was something about broken seals. And at one stage, I remember the cat wanders off and brings you back a big fat slug to eat. Delicious. Number 39, Fangs of Fury. Now, every time your bracelet glows, an angel gets its wings. No, wait, that's not it. A wall falls. And if 14 walls fall, the bracelet goes, well, no point in doing anything now, and it kills you. Also, as covers go, this one's an absolute ripper. A guy with an axe and a flaming sword riding a pair of snakes. Maximum memory awesomeness right there, for sure. Number 47, The Crimson Tide. No, nothing to do with the movie of the same name. In this one, you're a child in a village attacked by mercenaries. They kill your dad, they kidnap your mum, and you hit the road to grow up and vow revenge, not necessarily in that order. It has monks and an evil mask, and it was pretty good from memory. Number 50, Return to Firetop Mountain. What a way to celebrate 50 books strong too after 10 years. Back to fight Zagor again and not to fall foul of all the traps and critters in the mountain. Interestingly, they were going to wrap things up here with this one, but the success actually led to Puffin Publishers allowing another 9 after it to go ahead, including another with Zagor refusing to stay down. Number 54, Legend of Zagor. Oh boy, Zagor's back, but this time he's a demon and even harder to kill. And this time you can pick one of 4 characters to go forth and finally kill this no-good, chaos-loving lunatic of Firetop Mountain once and for all. And looking back at this one, I just learnt today about the board game that came with it. In 1993, a Legend of Zagor board game was designed by Ian Livingstone and produced by Parker Brothers. It featured the same choice of heroes as the game book, moulded plastic board and miniatures, and an electronic voiceover for the character of Zagor. How cool would that be? Now there's another thing I need to keep an eye out for the next time I go op shopping. And finally, number 56, Knights of Doom. You're a knight, you need to stop the doom. Or something. At one stage, I think you get judged by some trees and also have to deal with a monstrous parody of yourself. Glorious. There was a few others, including City of Zaire and a couple of other like Dungeoneer and books like that, but that was my fighting fantasy collection, until I moved houses a few times and sold the lot to save space foolishly. Now, what books did you have? What was your favourite? Let me know in a comment below. Although, it wasn't just the fighting fantasy gear that took up the special part of my bookshelf for all my RPG gear. There was just a little bit of space for a couple of other options. A special shout out to author Joe Diva, creator of the Lone Wolf of the Kai series, where the more of these in a row you played, the more skills your character gained, which made progression really fun. In the first book, you'd start off doing something naughty, get sent to the woods to cut down some trees as punishment. Your monastery is attacked, you run into a tree as you race back to the monastery to try and save your brothers. You knock yourself out, you wake up, and you're the last of the Kai, having to hit the road to fight evil and then live up to your soul reputation. Once you're dead, that's it, no more Kai. And if you were lucky enough to read the book where you got the Summer Sword, well, you just became the last of the Kai killing machine. Things weren't so easy if you didn't have this special weapon. Now, I had a handful of these books, but I don't remember them ever being as popular as Fighting Fantasy. I also vaguely recall some kind of choose-your-own-adventure book where you have a choice of working for the authorities or some kind of city freedom fighters. I'm going to need your help with this one. If you know what this is, please let me know in the comment below. All I remember was there were city riots over unemployment, I think. One of the weapons was an Ingram Mac-10 that you could use. You had to feed change into a power box in your flat to keep the power on, and it sounds very British. Any clues? Like I said, if you know what this is, please let me know, because I'd love to flash back to this book if I can find it. But the only solo game book that I've got on the shelf at the moment, well, it's actually this one, Tunnels and Trolls, which I think came out in the late 70s, if not early 80s. Amazing stuff. My local library had about 4, maybe 5 of these books. And the thing that I absolutely loved about this particular gaming system is that they're not standalones. You start off with a level 1 character, you fight evil, you get items, you become superhero. You know, the greater level wizard you are, the better spells you have. You could play different races, different classes. It was just quite a few steps up from Fighting Fantasy. Fighting Fantasy was fantastic because it was basically a one book does the lot. Tunnels and Trolls was I love my character in this one. He survived. Off we go. We can take what we built here and we continue to go along the series and hopefully go until we get killed. Although recently, with this particular book, I just decided for nostalgic sake to give it another roll. Created a level 1 character. I think I got up to a pair of skeletons, the first thing you fight in one of these adventures, and I was killed practically within the first couple of rolls. So pretty tough for a level 1 character. But yeah, I absolutely love this book. Now, the thing is about this particular one was that after I saw them at my library, I never saw them anywhere else except about 10 years ago at a secondhand bookstore in Bendigo in Victoria, Australia. I came across this particular copy. And at the time, I don't know why, I walked past it. And I went, oh, that's cool. That's a nice memory. Tunnels and Trolls. You know, good on it. And then a couple of years later, I found myself back in town because my in-laws live there. And I went, oh, look, the odds are really against me. But what if that book is still there? And it was. Still on the dusty shelves, still for sale. So I grabbed it and I love it. One of those books that now that I've got it in my later years, I'm not about to sell it anytime soon. Will I get my kids interested? Yeah, probably not. So yes, definitely not going to sell this one, especially considering the cheap source of game books in all those places I mentioned before seems to have well and truly dried up. But that's really not going to stop me because I love my op shopping. I love finding lost relics and treasures of my own early years, especially as a kid in the 80s. I'm going to continue to go forth and hopefully find some, $2, $5, that's about as much as I'd spend on one, fighting fantasy books somewhere out in the wild. And if you're in the same boat, if you're reminiscing and going, oh, I'm not paying drug money for these things, good luck. I hope you find as many as I do. And yeah, then you can break out the 2 dice, the pencil, and the eraser and go forth and be a hero once again. And try to get your kids on board. If not, good memories just for yourself.